All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to conduct what's really a forensic analysis of a single, incredibly dense verse from the Qur'an. The goal here isn't a quick summary. It's a deep, granular examination of Surah Al-Aʿrāf, verse 20. We're going to move through it methodically, treating every word as a piece of evidence to unpack exactly what it says about our origins, our purpose, and our station in the cosmos.
So here's the verse itself in English. "And we have certainly created you, O mankind, and given you human form. Then we said to the angels, prostrate to Adam. So they prostrated, except for Iblis. He was not of those who prostrated." Now, this verse doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits within a surah that tells the long, sprawling story of prophets and their people. You can think of this verse as the thematic prologue, the opening scene that sets the stage for the entire drama of humanity's journey on Earth.
And here it is in the original Arabic. The structure here is just so deliberate and so precise. What I want you to notice is the repeated use of the word thumma, which we translate as then. This isn't just a casual connector. It establishes a clear, unmistakable timeline. First, there's an act of creation. Second, there's an act of shaping or fashioning. And only then, third, comes a divine command to a totally different group of beings, the angels. This specific three-part sequence is the foundation for centuries of scholarly work, which is exactly what we're going to get into now.
So, to make sure our analysis is systematic, here's our roadmap. We'll start with the chronological puzzle that the verse's language presents. Then, we'll dive into that two-stage creation process. After that, we'll analyze the meaning of the command to prostrate. Then we'll unpack a really pivotal concept, the term Khalifa. From there, we'll look at humanity's rank compared to angels. And we'll wrap up by looking at the great test of Iblis. Okay, let's dive in. Our whole analysis really has to start with that one little word that controls the entire flow of the verse, thumma. Now, we translate it as then, but it's a bit more specific than that. In Arabic, it implies a sequence where there's a distinct separation or a delay between the events. It's not the word fa, for example, which would mean things happened one right after the other. The choice of thumma is deliberate. It insists on a clear chronological order, which immediately kicks off a major interpretive question. So, the text presents us with this fascinating linguistic and theological puzzle. The address is plural. We created you. We shaped you, but the command that follows is for a single person, Adam. So who is the you? Well, scholars have explored this deeply. One view is that you just refers to Adam, using a kind of royal we or a plural of majesty. But the dominant interpretation, the one you'll see cited most often, argues that you refers to all of us, the entire human race, created in potential, held within the very substance of our ancestor, Adam. Okay, so let's see how this idea builds by really dissecting those first two clauses. The verse doesn't just say, we created you once. It uses two very distinct verbs, khalaqnakum, meaning we created you, and sawarnakum, meaning we shaped you. And this is not just some poetic flourish. Nope, this is a technical description of a two-stage process. The source material is very clear on this. Khalaqna, that first word, is about bringing the essential substance, the raw material of humanity into existence. But sawarna is different. That refers to the act of fashioning, designing, and giving a specific form, an image or a surah, to that material that already exists. It's like the difference between quarrying a block of marble and actually sculpting a statue. So the creation of you in the plural was the creation of our human essence, which was then fashioned into the very specific form of the first human Adam. So the crucial point is that this initial substance, the raw material from that first act of creation, is identified elsewhere in the Quran as teen or clay. And it's described in all these different states, sometimes as dust, other times as sticky clay, or as dried, sounding clay. Now, these aren't contradictions. They're understood as different stages in preparing this primal medium. So when the verse says, we created you, plural, it's talking about the creation of the entire human race in potential, contained within this elemental clay, from which our prototype, Adam, was about to be shaped. Now we get to the third event in this thumma-marked sequence. So the substance has been created, the form has been perfected, and then a divine command is issued. But what's so fascinating is that this command isn't for the new creation. It's for the established beings of the heavens, the angels. The command is, usjudu li Adam, prostrate to Adam. The act is sajud, prostration, and it is absolutely critical here to understand the difference. As scholars point out,
between a prostration of worship, which belongs to God alone, and a prostration of respect and honor. This command was an act of obedience to God that took the form of honoring Adam's new and special station. The angels were basically being commanded to recognize the incredible significance of this new being. And this brings our analysis full circle right back to that central puzzle. If the creation and the shaping refer to all of us in potential, why is this incredible honor, having angels prostrate, directed to one single individual, Adam? To answer that, we have to look just outside this verse to a related passage that defines the very reason we were created in the first place. The key that unlocks this puzzle, according to the sources, is a specific title and function that was given to Adam, and by extension, to all of his children. This title explains the honor, and it clarifies our entire role in the cosmic order. The term is Khalifa. It comes from a root that means to come after or to succeed. So a Khalifa is a successor, a representative, someone who acts with delegated authority. In this context, it means a being entrusted by God with the stewardship of the earth. Adam wasn't just a new creature. He was the first to hold a divine mandate, a specific office, with an immense responsibility. And the source material backs this up with other key verses. Right here in Surah Al-Baqarah, God explicitly tells the angels, I'm about to place a Khalifa on earth. You see? So their prostration to Adam wasn't just because he existed, it was an acknowledgement of his appointment to this office. It was a recognition of the rank and the function that God had just given him. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide confirms that this role is for all of us. This verse uses the plural form khala'if, and it speaks directly to mankind, made you successors. This connects everything right back to the plural you in our main verse. See how it all links up? Adam was the first individual to be appointed Khalifa, but the office, the job, the responsibilities, that was always intended for his descendants. It's our collective purpose. So this function as Khalifa is precisely what establishes humanity's unique station. It's the theological justification for a command as massive as telling beings made of pure light to bow down before a being made of clay. And this table just lays out the core distinction beautifully. The Qur'an says angels come from light, humanity from clay. But the deciding factor for honor isn't the material you're made from. The real differentiator was knowledge. God taught Adam all the names, which commentators say means he gave him the capacity for language, for abstract thought, all the skills you'd need as a steward who has to understand and manage the world. The angels themselves admitted they didn't have this knowledge, so the honor was tied directly to this unique cognitive potential required for the job of Khalifa. The source material tackles this apparent paradox head-on, this whole idea of a hierarchy of substances, light versus clay. The story seems to set up this contrast intentionally to make a really profound point about what true value and honor mean in the grand scheme of things. And the answer is just unequivocal. Honor is a function of purpose, not substance. A being's worth isn't determined by its raw materials, but by what it was made for and what it's equipped to do. The divine knowledge symbolized by the names, and the trust of free will and moral responsibility that you need to be a Khalifa, those are the true markers of our high station. The vessel of clay was honored because of the unique spirit and purpose that was placed inside it. So this divine command, this public inauguration of humanity's role as Khalifa, it really served two purposes. It was an act of honoring Adam, but at the same time, it was a profound test for everyone present. A test that would trigger the first great act of cosmic rebellion. The verse ends, so they prostrated, except for Iblis. His refusal wasn't a moment of weakness or forgetfulness. No, it was a principled, reasoned dissent based on a completely flawed idea. His logic, which we find in another passage, was, I am better than him. You created me from fire, and him you created from clay. Iblis's fatal mistake was this exact materialist prejudice that the whole story is critiquing. He could only see the substance, the humble clay, and he was blinded by his arrogance to the honor of the divine spirit, the knowledge, and the purpose within. The source explains that everything Iblis does after this moment is just a continuation of that initial descent. His entire mission becomes a project to prove that his judgment was right and God's was wrong. He wants to prove humanity is unworthy of the office of Khalifa by exploiting our weaknesses and tempting us away from our purpose. So his rebellion is this multi-layered challenge against divine wisdom. And it's all fueled by envy and this arrogant belief in his own superiority based on what he's made of.
So, as we wrap up our forensic analysis, these are the key insights that really stand out. The verse lays out a deliberate two-phase creation, first substance, then form. The command to prostrate was an official recognition of Adam's rank and function as the first Khalifa. Our collective human purpose is defined by this role of stewardship. True honor, we learn, is a function of knowledge and responsibility, not what we're made of. And finally, the refusal of Iblis is the timeless warning against arrogance, racism, and the failure to see worth beyond the surface.
This whole deep dive leaves us with a really profound and practical thought. This verse isn't just a story about the past. It's a foundational statement of our purpose. It establishes our high station and the reason for that honor. So the ultimate question it poses goes beyond theory and becomes deeply personal for all of us. In our world right now, what does it actually mean to consciously and collectively fulfill this immense responsibility of being a steward, a khalifa on this earth?